everyone, this is Laco S, and welcome back to DCS World, and more importantly to the Mirage 2000C. So, we're going to be going over today the radar in a very basic format for the air-to-air beyond visual range capabilities and functionalities, as well as going over the ACM or air combat maneuvering functionalities when you're close into the target. The BVR radar is used for long-range acquisition, so whenever you're trying to find targets that are out multiple nautical miles, like past 10 nautical miles, you want to use the BVR modes. And then ACM is when you're in a dogfight up close and you want to just get the you just want to quickly get a radar lock on a target to employ weapons onto it. So we're gonna go over the symbology and features of the radar here first. Symbology of the radar here first. Before we get to that though, real quick. All these switches here on the side, if you were just using the radar on a relatively basic format, you don't have to worry about any of these switches here. The most important switches are these 4 thumb wheels down here that control the brightness of the display if you need to change the brightness of the display. And the TD.F and TD.R, these are just basically telling you if this display is on or off. You can switch the power switch if you switch this power switch into the up position, it'll turn the radar on. Also, before I get into the actual symbology of the display, one real neat feature about the display is that this is also your stores page, or the display acts as your store page when you go over to this armament panel to the right of the display here, and you take this test PRS switch and left click it to put it into the down position. And when the switch is in the down position, you'll get your basically your stores information. Most of your actual ordnance will be displayed on the bottom half of the aircraft here. So you'll have, so in this case we have 4 magics equipped. So we have those down there. And then your gun ammo, or your, well, yeah, your gun, technically it's a cannon because it's 30mm. But your cannon rounds are indicated here for both the left and the right cannons. So we have 125 rounds each, which is a full loadout. So we have basically a full air-to-air loadout here. I am using 4 magics for the magic tutorial that I will be doing after this video is done. So I'm going to unpause, and this spring-loaded switch will go back to normal. And I'm going to pause when I see what I want to show you. This will work. So, zooming a bit more into the display. Going from top to bottom, this giant wide arc here at the top that spans the whole radar screen is basically the length of travel for the radars, the selected radar azimuth setting. So this is the full 60-degree arc that the radar can scan. So the radar can't scan any wider than this, the full 60-degree arc. And the opening here on this giant arc is where the radar is currently pointing. So the radar is currently pointing on the horizontal axis, or its azimuth, is pointing right here. If you want to know the vertical axis, or how how far up or down the radar is pointing, I'm going to let this, you know how we'll be able to do it here. We're going to go here, and this right here is your radar elevation control or indicator here. So this is how high your radar is pointing up or down at any given time. And this little indicator here is your radar bar search. So we are currently searching 4 bars, indicated by 4. And this is, and you'll see as when I unpause, that this bar moves. So this is showing you that the radar is currently scanning this bar here. And each bar you can think of it as a vertical slice. So every bar is a vertical slice, and the radar stacks bars on top of each other to build its vertical scan distance. So every time the radar searches, it will say, I believe it starts for the Mirage 2000C, yeah, bottom right. So it starts at the bottom right, or bottom left really. Starts at the bottom left, scans the bottom most bar, goes up, and then scans across, and then goes up, scans across, and then goes up, and scans again from at the very top, right to left, and once it gets to the left, it goes all the way down, and then it starts to process over again from the bottom, from left to right, up, right to left, up, left to right, up, right to left again. I think I said that right. But basically, it goes back and forth up, and that's it when it does a 4-bar search. If it does a 2-bar search, it basically makes a giant loop. And then if it does a 1-bar search, where it's basically just going back, and it just basically at that point going back and forth over the same space of sky. I will explain later why you would want to adjust controls to narrow your radar search once we get into the actual application portion of this. But that's the very top and the side taken care of. We're going to take now we go down to the bottom here. The bottom here, we have a compass heading taped down here. So we are currently flying roughly 33 degrees. Or we have a heading of roughly 33 degrees down here. That's our indicator right there. And then that's, again, just showing us that are right there. Also from down here, we have a indicator going further, basically to help us further get an idea of where things are. That's your 60 degree mark down there. That's your 30 degree off your bore sight marker there. And that's, of course, dead ahead right there. This indicator right here is your horizon and aircraft indicator right there. So I'm going to go ahead and unpause the game. Disconnect autopilot. And we're going to make a slight bank to the left. And as you see, as we can make our bank to the left, our aircraft is pointing just below the horizon by a smidge. And our aircraft is tilted with our left wing down, right wing up, as we are now banking towards the left. So we're going to go ahead, before things get too crazy, we're going to even up and pull up. So you can't technically fly the aircraft heads down like this, but it's not recommended for doing so for very long. So, going up here. Oh, this is, I believe this is your, I think this is your radar indicator down here. I will double check with that later, but that is telling us we are in PID, which is our search mode. So this is basically our BVR search mode down here for PID. Most importantly, up here, we actually have our radar frequency selector, and this is HFR. So HFR is a high frequency repetition, and you want to stay in high frequency repetition, especially if you're trying to keep the your radar operations fairly simple or relatively simple when starting out. HFR or high frequency. There we go, camera control decides to work on me. High frequency repetition basically is going to allow you to get the most amount of information possible and also prevent as many radar clutters or interference as possible. Now, because if you go, there is an option to go into a lower frequency mode for the radar, but doing so will basically get you ground clutter. It'll get you all sorts of problems. So just focus on using HFR for most of your radar work, and you'll be fine. Also, to the right of this HFR setting is your radar channel current settings. And if you are flying with multiple Mirages and a mission or on online server, make sure, if you can while on the ground, deconflict these two numbers to make sure that you and another Mirage are using different radar channels. Otherwise, effectively, your two radars will jam each other. And, oh, before I forget, towards the top center here, as we make our way up here, this is the TDC, or Target Designation Caret. For the Target Designation Caret to the left-hand side, this number here is the current range to that Target Designation Caret. And off to the right, we have the lower and upper bounds of the radar scan pattern. So it's so this radar at 32 nautical miles is able to scan a vertical area between 1,000 feet and 29,000 feet. I'm going to, let's see here, fly a little bit out. Anyway, let's go ahead, try to line ourselves up really nicely for an intercept later on. That'll happen. There we go. Heading 030. Let's toss on autopilot altitude hold. Oh, hold on. It'll eventually figure it out. There we go. So, as I move, TDC is moved through the TDC controls, which you are going to have to keybind. So I'm going to go here and show that off now. So TDC down, up, left, and right. There's also a TDC to press, and that'll be used to lock the target later on. So, as you can see, as I am moving the TDC up and down, it is increasing and decreasing its range. And as I move it from side to side, I am also moving the TDC in azimuth. Also, as you note, there is this line that has now appeared down here on the radar. And that is showing where your TDC is pointing in relation to your aircraft heading. So, our aircraft's heading at 030. And our TDC is pointed, go ahead and make right here, and now our TDC is pointed at 010. So if you need to get bearing information, you can use this to get an idea to help get your aircraft's bearings. Obviously, as you move the TDC up and down, things change. So as you move it closer to you, the bearing that your radar cursor is pointed is going to change, as well as moving it side to side also changes it as well. Also, moving the radar range closer does actually shrink the vertical distance the vertical height that you can scan, and obviously that's because the vertical height is in degrees. So the further out you go, the larger and larger the radar slice gets. So, I put that into an ACM mode by accident. There we go. Alright, so let's go ahead and push it out to 80 nautical miles. So if you want to increase the radar ranges display, which is this number here, this is how far the radar gets scanned out towards. You actually can push the radar range out to beyond 80 to 160 and 320. However, that is mostly used for data link contacts. For most onboard radar usage, I would just keep this at 80 because the Mirage 2000C can't really detect radar contacts out past 80 nautical miles. However, also note that as we push the radar cursor out far enough, we can see that we're actually going negative. So we are basically at this point, our radar is basically picking up the ground at this point because it's 3,000 feet below the ground is the minimum height, and the maximum height that we are scanning at is 32,000 feet. Oh, and that is also, by the way, in a 2-bar search. I have, with the radar here, keybinds set up for increasing and decreasing the width and the height of the radar scan. So I will showcase those. I'll go ahead and showcase those now through here. There we go. Radar scan line increase and decrease. So if I want to make it increases, makes you scan a wide, like a taller section of sky. Decrease has a thinner section of sky. And wider or narrower basically decreases the azimuth setting. So as I narrow down the search setting, I can narrow it down to 15 degrees, expand it to 30, and bring it all the way to 60. If you have a narrower section of radar you want to area that you're scanning, the radar will scan a 30-degree cone around the TDC. So it's not a fixed 30 scan, it's a 30 scan around the TDC. Same applies for if I make it to a narrower 15, it'll basically track my TDC destination caret. Let's put it out to 30. There we go. Also, as you notice here on my radar, it is scanning a 2-bar search pattern. Now, if I push it up, I can scan 4 bars. Or if I want to narrow it, I can make it scan 2 bars. And again, the 2-bar scan basically makes a loop. So the radar is basically going from left to right, up, goes up at the very end of its travel, and then goes from right to left, and then back down, and then it goes from left to right in a giant loop. Now, while our targets are still fairly far out, and I'm going to use the F10 map to show where they are. Our 2 targets are coming down the coastline here. Let's see here, 103 nautical miles. And I'll prove to you that you can't see them here with the Mirage's radar. See, they would be somewhere out here, and they're not. So we're going to go back down and use this time to explain a little bit more how the radar actually works. So, if you don't have the ability, if you don't have the room on your HOTAS to bind the radar narrowing and expanding, and as well as the vertical bar selection, come down here to the radar panel here, and the scan width is here, and the scan height here in bars is here, so you can adjust it here. If you need to, for whatever, later on when I talk about, when I do a video on more advanced functions of the radar, you'll use this to set the PRF. And you can manually set the range here if you don't want to push the TDC all the way up to the top of the screen. STT will come in handy in a bit. Also, if you want it, the radar display is set in PPI, which is this pie-shaped display here. If you want to set it to a more traditional B-scope, let's see here. There we go. I'm going to pause here. You can take this radar grid selector switch and put it here, and this turns the radar from a PPI into a B-scope format. However, the Mirage's default is PPI, and I actually personally like it, so we're going to stick it in PPI for the moment. Also note that for your radar 2 function, you do need to have the radar power switch into the emit stage. You can have the radar in standby, and when you but when you put the radar into standby, it'll operate, but it won't emit. However, it'll be fully prepared and ready for you if you want to go into a air combat maneuvering mode, which we will cover later. So do keep in mind that is kind of important. You can't have the radar. The radar won't basically operate or give you any information until the radar is in the emit stage. So let's see here. Covered all that stuff. The next thing I need to cover with the radar, before we get into before the targets start coming into radar range, is the main reason why you want to narrow your search band with the Mirage's radar for both the Mirage 2000C and any other radar is your refresh rate for the radar is very much dependent on how much area of the sky you're trying to scan. If I had this set to the full 60 degree scan with the 4 bars, it takes significantly longer for the radar to actually pick up targets and than it is than if I were to narrow the scan. So to make a point of it, if I go ahead and do that, you can see that the refresh rate of our contacts here, and these are our known contacts, so I'm going to move the TDC off to the side so you can see them a little bit better. So our contacts are up here, are basically just like, they're not refreshing very often. They're like taking forever to refresh. We're not getting a lot of real good up-to-time information on them. And if there were some spurious false contacts around them, we wouldn't know until quite a bit later. By decreasing the bars and decreasing the width, we basically make it so that the radar updates a lot more frequently. And as you can see now, the contacts are updating a lot more frequently. Now, because these guys are also in relatively close formation, we're getting a whole bunch of contacts all together up, so that's why they're like that. So we're going to go ahead, and there's one other thing to note with the radar, and it's a very important thing that every aircraft you should know how to do, and that is IFF. For the IFF, you have either off, sec, or I believe if you push it all the way over here, this is continuous. Or contiguous, and the sec basically only does a radar interrogation along a narrow section, an IFF interrogation along a narrow section, where continuous does it across the entire width of your selected radar scan. So to do an IFF on these targets, because the Mirage is not automatically IFF targets, you go to adjust, we're here underneath adjust controls, nose wheel steering, IFF interrogate. So basically you use your nose wheel steering button, hold it down, and once this turns solid, it'll perform an IFF interrogation. I know these are all enemy targets, so we will not see any positive IFF returns. There we go. So a positive or a friendly IFF return will be a diamond, but since we did not see any diamonds, we know that these are it's a non-friendly contact. And just to show you what sec looks like, as you can see, with sec, it's a narrower line. So you're not trying to IFF everything, you're just trying to IFF that right there. Let's go ahead and continue this just because we can. Alright, so now our contacts are 40 nautical miles out. As you can see, we can put our target designation caret over them, and we are getting 40. They're now roughly 40 nautical miles. We know they're between 5,000 and 25,000 feet. Per the briefing, I do know that these are co-altitude with us. If we want to get more, and you see we had a spurious contact pop up and then immediately disappeared, and it popped up and then disappeared. So, as you can see here, let's see if I can't see if decluttering does anything. No, that's okay. These contacts are in close formation, and when you get contacts in close formation, they will do they will be on top of each other. And in fact, now that they're underneath 40,000 nautical miles, there we go. Now we're able to split up the contacts a little bit better like this. And you see that there's here's a good example. So you have the contacts here. And then you also have them with some of these bars underneath and some without. The contact is this location, and on the map is on this point right here. If there is a bar underneath there, and the contact is pointing downward, what basically that means is the downward pointing triangle is indicating that the contact is closing in on you. And the bottom most mark is that on a closing mark is whenever your the radar is doing its lowest scan of its bar. If it detects the target when it's closing on its lowest scanned bar, it'll give you a solid line there. If the target was cold and running away from us and getting away from us, the triangle would, instead of pointing down, point upwards. And then if the radar scan detected the target on its topmost scan, the bar would be on the top of that that triangle pointing upwards. So it's a little bit weird. Also, as you can imagine, if you were doing a 4-bar scan, if the target is picked up somewhere in the middle, you're not going to get a bar for either closing or gaining, either closing or separating from the target. So that is something to note with the radar. You're not going to get a lot of accurate, you're not going to get a lot of super detailed flight information, but with a, if you start narrowing your search parameters, you can get a rough idea of what the target is. Also, because these targets are roughly co-altitude, it's going to jump between having a bar and not. That is mainly because with the target, with the scan, with the scan overlay. The scan does have a bit of overlap, so you could easily pick up a target twice on a scan. As it goes over it, goes up a little bit, and then goes over it again. So, now that's enough talking. So we talked about IFFing, which is using the nose wheel steering switch. And again, we can confirm that these are enemy targets, and that they are now actually closing in fairly closely. We're going to go ahead now and start locking them up. So, to lock them up, move your cursor over a target, and press the TDC lock button, which is TDC to press. So we're not. Oops. And we'll get. Supposed to get a lock. Double checking my controls here for a second. Oh, my bad. There we go. TDC to press was confusing it for another thing. So TDC to press does a soft lock on a normal setup. So what I mean by that is, if you do not have if you do not press this button for an STT or PISC, you'll enter PISD, which is the French version or the French name for a TWS scan. So a TWS scan will do a soft lock of the target, where the target is told to keep track of one target but scan the surrounding area. And this is used for fighters like the Mirage 2000C that don't have Fox-3 missiles to lock up a target, but not necessarily to put all of its energy towards a target. It's just like making sure you're keeping track of that target and any other targets in the surrounding area. So this does give you a better sense of situational awareness, so you're not like blinded by the target. You're not blindly putting all your radar energy on the target. You're trying to at least keep an idea of what's around it. Plus, this also does not give the receiving aircraft a warning that you are hard locking it in preparation to fire a missile. Well, as you can see, we're closing in fairly close, so we're going to go down to 10 nautical miles and pause here. So, some symbology up here. Should also mention, I didn't mention it earlier, but the number next to the contact is its closure rate or escape rate in terms of, I believe it's in terms of Mach. So we're at a closure rate of 1.6 Mach, which makes sense because we're going in fairly fast and they're coming at us. So you're going to get fairly high closure rates in terms of Mach, even though none of us are going supersonic. Also, on this information here, we have some more information about where they're flying versus where we're flying. This is, of course, our relative heading. Their relative heading is this arrow right here. So they're coming more or less directly at us. They're coming at us roughly like 5 degrees, and from here, they're coming at us roughly from, I believe that's 5 degrees relative to us. And coming up here, we have a whole bunch of information about the target. So this is the closure rate right here. So we have a 950 closure rate right here. We have 100, so that's, this is also, I believe, this is not in Mach. This is actually in airspeed, which is knots. So it's a 360 knot closure, which is Mach 1.7. This is the altitude. So, and this is also in basically hundreds of feet. So this is 100, so this is 15,000 feet. So just imagine 2 extra zeros after this, and that's your altitude in feet. This is the aircraft's heading. So the aircraft is heading at us at. This is the aircraft's true heading. So it's heading at 219 degrees. true heading, so I believe I locked up him, and there he goes, 219 degrees. Speed of 350. And that's our range to the target. So we have 0.6. Actually, I'm not quite. Hold on. There we go. So there we go. That's our. Now he's now at an offset of 10 degrees. And here we go. That means he's coming down the right-hand side right there. That's good. However, we're not interested in locking him up, but there we go. That's our lockup for the 2 Aleutian transports, and there we go. That's our there's our F5E escorts that we're also supposed to intercept. Disconnecting the autopilot so it doesn't yell at me. So, as you can see, you can actually, even though the Mirage has like an 80 nautical mile radar, it did in real time. That was a relatively fast. You can get up very close, very fast with targets. Now, if you were wondering why it was yelling at us to go to PCIC, that's basically because it thought we were. It was basically sort of as a reminder to let you know that, hey, you might want to start engaging your close combat radar soon. To immediately soft. Now, if you want to go into a STT track instead of the to just do a single target track, you want to go to and equip this PC STT button here. You can either TWS a target. You can either do a TWS lock on a target and then press this button, or if you immediately want to go to STT mode, just click it. And now that that's selected, go ahead and get behind them now. Also note that with the radar, in this high frequency repetition mode, it does rely on the Doppler effect. So when the radar is in a Doppler effect, you need closure rate or even just also or escape rate to basically get the lock. If the target is effectively beaming you or notching you, which just basically means it's not traveling, you're not getting a lot of you're not closing in or getting away from the target. The radar basically does not see the target in Doppler mode. It just assumes it's a ground clutter and there's nothing it can do about it, and it just becomes invisible to the radar. That's when you want to go to your low frequency radar mode. However, that comes with its own downsides. Most of the time, HFR is going to suit you well for closure. As you saw when we were closing into a target on a head-on pass, we were easily able to pick up the target because our closure rate was so high. And even now that we're starting to catch up with the target, we're able to get our HFR lock there. So I'm going to go head down here, and we're now going to get a hard lock on a target. There we go. And now that we got an STT lock, the same information appears. So again, 15,000 feet, closure rate of 120 knots. Instead of the target now being coming at us at nearly 0 degrees angle to us, it is now 175 degrees away from us. So it is slightly is basically going directly away from us. That's the target's true heading again. Again, this is the target's range. So that's all there and all well and dandy. I do believe that you're not going to, while the radar is in navigation mode, get any symbology for the targets, any information on the target up here. So there's going to be no HUD symbology for the radar lock here while the target is in while the HUD is in nav mode. In order to actually get HUD symbology to show you what target it's locking up out there in the real world, we need to effectively go into a combat mode. So I'm going to quickly just go into a magic mode, and Magic's decided to hold on. Let's see here if I can pause and turn that down so I can explain this. There's a sound. Here it is. Okay, so we're silencing the magic for a bit. Symbology with the magic, whenever you lock it up, does turn into a triangle to get both whenever the magic missile and the radar locks on the same target. That is one possible symbology you will get for a radar lock. If the radar lock is far out in advance, though, especially if you're using the Super 530 mode, your radar's lock up here will become a square. And then you will get radar ranging information here on the HUD. As we are in more of a close-in aspect, especially when you go into either cannon, which is your guns, or your magic missile mode, if you go into one of those modes, your radar, your symbology will change up a little bit, and you'll get different symbology. But that square and that circle you got earlier, that square is your radar contact on the HUD. The circle was the which is a magic lock, which we will cover in a different video. So again, your information's up here for your radar radar contact right there. Again, our hunting tape down there. Again, we're showing us that we're going south, and that's pretty much it for the BVR radar. Nothing more really to show here. So let's go ahead and use to unlock our target. We can go ahead. Magic unlock is a different button. That's not going to get us our unlock. What you want to do for a radar unlock is go to Adjust Controls. Don't use Magic Unlock. You want to use Weapon System Command Depress. So Weapon System Command Depress unlocks the target, and now we're getting our magic, our tracking symbology, which is that circle. So now that was all BVR. BVR is quite a bit. It's quite a bit wordy, quite a bit expansive, and now you see why I only wanted to go over the basics of BVR radar locking and BVR operation. All right, so now that we finished the BVR radar, there's one last thing I wanted to cover. Whenever a target lock is broken, either forced or by your own will, you will get information on what the radar thinks is where the target is up here, and this assumed radar information is up here in yellow. So you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about it. It's just it's basically giving you an idea to help you reacquire lost targets. However, if you're in a close-in dogfight, the best way to reacquire a lock is instead of going through the BVR radar, I just want to go to an ACM mode. Plus, also, if you're in an air-to-air dogfight, this is the quickest way to get your information. Now, here's something interesting to note. We are in navigation HUD mode right now, as indicated by the navigational information up here. So it's 32 nautical miles to waypoint 1. We can go ahead and put that up to 2. See, we are indeed in nav mode. You can engage ACM radar modes here. However, you won't get any HUD symbology that you have done so. So we're going to go down here and do weapon system command forward, and we're going to do command a bore sight look track, And as you can see, we have no idea that we've done so up here on the radar, up on the HUD, because we have no symbology about where the target is that we've locked up or anything. And in fact, the only symbology that we have is down here on the BVR radar right here. So we're going to go ahead and unlock that target. And there we go. So, in order to get the ACM HUD symbology up and working, you're going to need to be in basically a dogfight mode, or a weapon, or a air-to-air weapon selection mode. So this mode works whenever you are, whenever you have the Super 530 selected, or you commanded the air-to-air guns or magics to work. So we're gonna go ahead and do, for this example, magic. We're gonna command the magics, which is CMD magic. So that is not the radar lock symbology. That is just the magic searching, doing its search. And it's flashing because I don't have ACM, don't have the master arm selected, but that's what we want. So there are several ACM modes to be to know. Weapon system command forward. First click gets you the bore sight mode. So for bore sight, we have that little circle on the radar there. We put the circle over the target. And it locks it up. The target will then appear as a square on the HUD. And that's showing us that we are indeed targeting the aircraft. Also, that larger box and now that triangle symbology has to do with the magic's locking system. So it'll just automatically become equipped whenever you're in magics and gun mode. We can also see, and I will get more over into the once we get into weapons deployment about the HUD symbology, but you do actually with radar lock get HUD symbology for your targets, range down there, closure rate, all that fun stuff. So that's locking up a target with the bore sight mode. We are going to undesignate the target if it will behave. Go back again to magic mode. Alright, so the next mode for ACM is vertical scan. Now, this mode vertical scan is only available to magic and cannon. The Super 530, when I cover that, has its own special secondary search mode that replaces the vertical scan. So, vertical scan is basically it's a straight up and down vertical scan. Very narrow in terms of width, but it's supposed to pick up targets that are above you. So there we go. As you can see, I dipped down below this aircraft right here, and even though my nose was pointed quite a bit down, the aircraft, our target was picked up. Next the next mode is those are the two automatic acquisition modes, or ACM modes, that we use using weapon system command forward. If we use, there's a different mode, however, that can be selected if we use the weapon system command down. So we're going to go ahead and unlock. There we go. And we're going to use now weapon system command down. And we're going to get BHH. Now BAH appeared. And that's a horizontal scan. So again, show that off. Let's see if I put my nose my aircraft down quite a bit. And command BAH there. So this is a horizontal scan mode of the aircraft. And it's going to scan basically left to right in a relatively narrow pattern. As you can see, it's still relatively high up enough that the radar is picking up our targets relatively fast. And this is basically, if you know the target is off to your left or right, and you just want to get a lock-in, you can do BAH mode, which is basically a horizontal auto-acquisition mode for your lock. Let's see here. We're closing in on this F5E. See if we if we can get, again, just showcase BAH working, and then see the BAH picked up a target that was off to the side, not directly above us. There we go. I was wondering. I was trying to slow down so that this, so we don't overrun our target drones. There we go. Now we're above them. In fact, okay, there we go. Now that we're above them, it's not really working as we're not acquiring anything. So there is a second BAH mode, or horizontal scan. If we go down, that's BA2, and BA2 is basically a low frequency, low repetition frequency scan mode of for horizontal. So if your target's trying to notch you and you're in an ACM, you're in a dogfight, and for some reason it's just not, your auto acquisition isn't picking it up, you can go to BA2, and hopefully with the low pulse repetitions ability to pick up targets that are have a low closure rate, you might be able to pick up your target with this mode. And that is all of the ACM modes. ACM modes are obviously, by their nature, they're supposed to be fairly easy. So, quick review. Forward or up gives you, at first, basically a bore sight mode, where you put the target inside this circle up here on the HUD, and you do that, and you lock it up. You get vertical mode, with cannons and magic, you get a vertical scan mode. And with this vertical scan mode, you basically put the target on your lift vector slash directly above you, and you'll pick up the target. Going down, you get horizontal mode 1 for high frequency repetition, and mode 2 gives you a low frequency repetition to also help you pick up targets that are not directly in front of you. So we're going to go ahead and do bore sight. And there we go, we picked up our target. And magic's automatically locked onto it. And there we go. So, I am going to do, the next tutorial I'm going to be doing now is on magics. We're going to do magic cannons, and then we're going to do Super 530s afterwards, because Super 530s have, because they don't really rely on ACM modes to do their work, I want to do a separate intercept and tutorial series on those. So, until next time, this is Loco S signing out, and in the next video we're going to be going over magics and cannons. I'll probably do those as one video because they're, well, it's relatively complicated. In the Mirage 2000C, they're more or less in the same combat mode. So, until then, see you around.